Ladies and gentlemen, now we turn to the voices from all stakeholders. And it's an exciting event this afternoon, and we have the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. But at the same time, there are many questions also from civil society organizations. Are we really going to deliver? Are we really going to deliver for small farmers? Are we really going to deliver for equity in agriculture? Those are important questions, and we can only answer those questions by the actions which we are going to take, because only then we can also convince those organizations which are very important for our endeavor. Only then we can convince them that it is all about action on climate smart agriculture for smallholders, and it's also all about equity. It's my pleasure to give the floor to Sonja Vermeulen, who is the head of research of CCAFS, who will facilitate the panel discussion. And the panelists of today are His Excellency Mr. Luis Felipe Arauz Cavallini, Minister of Agriculture and Livestock for Costa Rica, Madam Esther Penunia from the Asian Farmers Organization, Mr. Jean de Cleene, Senior VP Global Initiatives of Yara, Dr. Rebecca Shaw, Associate Vice President of the Environmental Defense Fund, and Mr. Martin Bwalya of NEPAD. Please come to the podium and take your seats. A pleasure to have you here, and shake up the crowd.
Well, thank you very much, Hans. And while the panelists get their mics put on and so on, I'll just give you a short introduction to our panel this afternoon. If you consult the materials on the little flash drive you've been given today, or look at anything that's available on the web, including the Climate Smart Agriculture Sourcebook, you'll see that we have quite deliberately chosen, those of us who've been working on these past several years, we've deliberately chosen a very broad and inclusive definition, working definition of climate smart agriculture. And it's one that cuts across crops, livestock and fisheries, across farms, up to landscapes and through to entire territories. All parts of the value chain, inputs, water, energy, fertilizer, production itself, and also moving onwards to processing, transport, production, waste management, and consumers. Finally, we also see that climate smart agriculture needs not only technologies, but also changes in institutions, in finance, in markets, in information, and in policies. And when I say policies, not just policies in the agricultural sector, but right across rural development, social support, safety nets, and so on. And so we see that we need action from everyone on this. We need action from governments and their constituencies, from businesses, their suppliers and their customers, from research organizations and educational organizations and their students and end users, from governments at all levels, right through to international organizations. And when you think about it, all of us fall into actually every single one of these groups. But we will also see that when we wear different hats and we take different roles, we'll have slightly different perspectives on climate smart agriculture and where the priorities lie. And the idea of the panel today is to draw out some of those differences, the breadth of the shared experience and differences and priorities that we share around the world. So, thank you very much. We have with us, let me start. In the red scarf, we have Esther Penunia from the Asia Farmers Organization. Thank you for joining us. Sonali Bisht, are you with us today? Great, wonderful. Sonali, the final chair is here for you. Please come up and join us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sonali Bisht, who's from the Institute of Himalayan Environmental Research and Education. But today she's representing the Civil Society Organization Group on Agricultural Research for Development. We have the Honourable Felipe Arauz from Costa Rica. Thank you very much for joining us, Minister, and providing another ministerial voice this afternoon. We have Sean de Cleene, who's the Senior VP from Yara International on global initiatives. Rebecca Shaw, who's with us, she's the Associate Vice President of Environmental Defence Fund. And finally, Martin Bwalya, who's here. He's the head of the NEPAD Planning and Coordinating Agency. So thanks very much. We are going to have a couple of rounds here. As you know, we all have other engagements to get to and networking events, so we'll try and keep it short and sharp. So let's start at the beginning. We've heard that the pillars of climate-smart agriculture are increasing productivity and farmers' incomes, ensuring reductions and removals of emissions, and finally, improving the resilience of agriculture. So first of all, turning to you, Esther, from a farmers' organization perspective, where do you see the real priority lying amongst those three?
For us, this should be the priorities of increasing productivity and incomes, building the resilience of family farmers and their communities, and adaptation should be taken all together at the same time, so what we call the triple win. Mm-hmm. There is no or, but it should be end, and end. And we think that this we can achieve if we do ecologically, environment-friendly agriculture, one that protects, conserves, promotes our ecosystems, and one that does integrated and diversified farming, and also an agriculture that gives social justice to farmers, to women and men, an agriculture that gives income so that the youth can be attracted to farming, a governance system in agriculture that gives a significant involvement to farmers and their organizations in the governance processes in agriculture.
Thank you, Esther. Turning to you, Martin, perhaps you would add to this a more development perspective. Can we hear from the NEPAD point of view?
Yes, thank you. It's actually true that when we're talking about climate-smart agriculture, in this group, probably we understand what we mean. And when you come to farmers, you would imagine that in Africa, when the farmers are talking about climate-smart agriculture, the word they would replace that with is livelihoods. Mm-hmm. And we're saying in the NEPAD agency, that is the starting point, that is the key pillar. And in fact, in terms of levels of ambition, we want to put in that same sentence, prosperity. So it's livelihoods and prosperity. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at climate-smart agriculture as actually contributing to enabling the resilience of our agricultural systems so that you can bring agriculture to the center of socioeconomic growth, inclusive development in terms of economic opportunities, jobs and incomes, also ultimately economic growth in the communities and the countries.
Thanks, Martin. So we've heard an emphasis on a people-centric approach, on livelihoods, prosperity. Rebecca, turning to you, would you see a more environmental framing for climate-smart agriculture?
No, I think that what's so important and exciting about the Climate-Smart Agriculture, the Global Alliance, is that it's a recognition that it's not one or the other anymore. Mm-hmm. It's and. And we believe that we need an integrated system, systems approach for agricultural production that focuses on people and their needs, the environment that underpins the sustainable agriculture and the economic needs as well. So I think the focus on and the bringing together of these communities, these different communities, the business sector, the development sector, the environmental sector, to really focus on how to deliver on the aspiration for climate-smart agriculture is what's really important about this announcement today.
Thanks, Rebecca. Sonali, turning to you, you represent your own civil society organisation and a broader constituency today. How do you reconcile the views that you take with those that you've heard already?
Climate-smart agriculture. I mean, we are using the term climate-smart agriculture. But this climate-smart agriculture is really not an option now. It is a necessity. Smallholder, vulnerable farmers with whom civil society organizations are working are are in a state where they do need help. They are being affected by climate changes. Their livelihoods, their prosperity is at stake. The basic livelihood is at stake. And prosperity is something that we also need to bring into the picture if we need to keep the farmers in farming. In this kind of a situation, everybody needs help and needs to support each other because no one section has all the answers. So adaptation is important, mitigation is important, and again, what Esther had mentioned, it's not either or, it's and. So all these are very important aspects. However, for many civil society organizations, there are also various apprehensions. There are apprehensions because some of the problems that have been created by mistakes which have been made by decision makers, by wrong policies in the past. So there are these apprehensions which are still there about how a total reversal can take place, and that, I think, actions will show. And the same is the question with research, because even in research, agricultural research has just gone in a particular direction. There are also problems of certain kind of terminologies which different sectors use because they live in their own silos. The civil society organizations use terms like ecological agriculture, natural agriculture, permaculture, organic agriculture, and there are many practices within them which can address both adaptation and mitigation issues. Well, there are certain sections which talk of conservation agriculture. What we need is for these ideas actually to come together, for us to be able to understand each other vocabularies. And what was also mentioned earlier, that climate smart agriculture is not a religion. There are no rituals. I think there is an openness which is required. So that openness will actually help us to understand each other and to work together. We have all worked not only in our own silos as in different sectors, but there has also been an order which has been hierarchical, where some sectors have been, or some of the stakeholders have been much more powerful than others. So in this, there are many of these issues and many concerns with the civil society organizations have, but also an optimism that and a need for multi-stakeholders to come together to be able to better solve problems which are problems for all of us and which none of us can as individuals solve.
Thank you, Sonali, and we very much hope that the Alliance will be the forum for those much-needed conversations. Turning to you, Sean, you've been asked today to represent not just your company, but the private sector at large. What do you think, from a private sector perspective, where the priority falls among productivity, adaptation, and mitigation? If it's more, is it simply a win-win-win, or do you have particular priorities among the different pillars?
I mean, we have to address them all. That, I think, we all agree on. And, I mean, productivity is going to be crucial, and I think we've talked today about silos, and there have been, historically, these different silos. You could go to large food security gatherings like this at the UN, you would never hear the words climate change and agriculture. You would go to a climate change meeting, you wouldn't hear about, you wouldn't hear the reverse. And I think what's really exciting about this initiative is it's trying to break those silos down. It's trying to look at holistic approaches across, to create sustainable food systems within the context of, sustainable ecologies. And looking at how different sectors are going to engage with that, whether it's the civil society, whether it's the research community, farmers' organisations, government, private sector, local and international. But that's challenging. I mean, when you break those silos down, it's, we've got to find a new language, as you were saying, or not a new language, but we've got to find common language. We have to understand each other. And that's what's been very exciting about the formation of this alliance, is really looking at an inclusive approach which is really setting out on a journey to work together without any one side thinking we have all the answers here and they're trying to put their case. And so, I think that's the position that we're in. I think there was another point that was raised earlier, which was by Minister Adesina, which is as well as it's around alignment, because it also goes beyond just agriculture now. You're looking at where the weather systems, come into this. What is smart financing? What do those complete systems look like? And so it's going to require very much an alignment both at and how we find that alignment both at a global level, and this is a global alliance, but then that has to be translated down to the country level, and that's what's exciting when you listen to the countries themselves taking real ownership, for this agenda. And I think that, as the private sector, is what we, really respond to, is how can we engage at a country level and to look at how those economies are being shaped in a much more inclusive way.
That's wonderful. So let's finish this round by turning to the Honourable Minister. And indeed, we have heard great things about what's happening in agriculture in Costa Rica. Is Costa Rica ready to be climate smart?
Well, first of all, thank you. I would like to first give my perspective on climate smart agriculture, because the term smart tells me that we need to use more information. We need to move from an agriculture that is input rich to an agriculture that uses input but is more information rich. We need to use knowledge, both scientific and traditional knowledge, to understand all the processes that go into an agroecosystem in a very specific way, so we can really tackle on those issues. I see greenhouse emissions like system inefficiencies, like if you throw away residues that can be turned into biomass to generate fuel, alternative fuel, that's an inefficiency. If nitrogen that should have gone to protein production goes to nitrous oxide that impacts the atmosphere, that's a system inefficiency. If you have methane that could have gone to protein or carbohydrate production, that's a system inefficiency. So we need to tackle those with information. As far as the Costa Rica, if we are ready or not, I think we have made more progress in mitigation. We have put enabling policies. We have a very strong program in payment for environmental services. We have committed to be a carbon neutral economy, carbon neutral country by year 2021. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that goal, but it is a goal. So in mitigation, we've done much more progress because of that enabling policies. But in adaptation, we're still very vulnerable. For example, we had a big epidemic of coffee rust 2 years ago. It was very, very devastating. This year, we're experiencing a very heavy drought that's causing a lot of loss. So on the adaptation side, we still have a long way to go.
Well, thank you, Minister. And it's refreshing to hear such a united view across the panellists from very different backgrounds, giving this view of a win-win-win for productivity, adaptation and mitigation. And that's great, and we hope that this will pave the way for everyone to work together going forward. At the same time, we also know that agriculture does breed controversy, and controversy can be an obstacle to progress. And the kind of progress we want is actual action, not just talk. So if you don't mind, I'm going to turn now to some of those controversies. And going back to you, Minister, do you feel that there are major controversies that you would need to deal with to make progress on climate-smart agriculture in the near future?
Yes, we think there are some controversies because there's always resistance to change. And as we have heard, business as usual is not going to be the way to go. We need to change the way we do business. And we need to change several even fundamental assumptions We need to change them. The World Food Trade System, for example, we go and buy whatever is cheaper, no matter if it's produced under low environmental standards. We need to internalize the production of greenhouse gases. We need to internalize in the production cost the environmental effects of production, and that would make the food trade more akin to climate smart agriculture. We need to educate the people that are in the field, extensionists, researchers, university professors, that we were educated in the green revolution paradigm, and we need to have a different mindset. So that it's a sort of a controversy because you have resistance to change. And also there's the biodiversity issues, which is very, very difficult because resilience is based on biodiversity. And we don't need that the intellectual property rights become an obstacle for the sharing of biodiversity for everybody. That's one thing. And the other thing, I think FAO has done a very good job with the Treaty on Biodiversity of Food Products and Agriculture. We need the same kind of policy for microorganisms, which are a key component in several of the sustainable processes that are going to lead to climate smart agriculture.
Thanks so much, Minister. Esther, going back to you. The Alliance embraces organisations involved in organic agriculture and those involved in industrial agriculture. Do you think that we can accommodate these different perspectives and learn from each other?
I think we can accommodate the perspectives, but I think we have to define first and have a common, clear understanding of what climate smart agriculture is and what climate smart agriculture is not. Mm-hmm. Okay, I heard I think the minister from Ireland say something this morning that we need to define climate smart agriculture. When we define it, then we can say, we can have the criteria, a set of criteria, a set of principles whereby we can say this is climate smart. And then when we are clear with that, everyone, large farmers, small farmers, like in our organization, will be able to assess how they can go towards this climate smart agriculture. Let me tell you an example. For example, in our organization, in many farmers in Asia, we have been using chemical-intensive agriculture because Green Revolution was very successful in Asia. But then many farmers say we need to transform or transit or go to sustainable, integrated, diversified agriculture. And we know what it means. We know it means, for example, in a 1 hectare area of land, we have to plant some trees, we have to do recycling, we have to do composting, we have to do integration like rice, pig, chicken, duck, and vermi, all at the same 1 hectare farm. But then we know that is the goal, and then we have a clear plan. For example, in the next 5 years, this year we will apply only 80% fertilizer, or we will have chickens in our farm, or we have fish in our farm, until in the next 5 years we achieve our goal. So first, a clear definition of what climate smart agriculture is.
Thanks very much, Esther, for bringing us down to the real practicalities of what farmers need to do. When Kim came up, she asked me to wrap up the panel as quickly as possible. So what I'm going to do now is just ask the 4 panelists who've only spoken once, just to give your one statement, one sentence, on what you think this alliance should be doing in its first 6 months of action. Over to you, Sonali.
Yeah, I think first to build an equitable governance system and to initiate, since we are talking only about 6 months, and to initiate a collaborative plan which brings in the realities from the grassroots onto the table.
Thank you, that's very clear. Martin.
Thank you very much. I think it has been said that we need to define and understand climate smart agriculture. The Global Alliance should spend its first 6 months listening, needs to understand, needs to engage and pick up what are the farmers, what are the grassroots saying, what is their interpretation of climate smart agriculture, and begin to form how do we become relevant and useful to that perception. And the African Climate Smart Agriculture Alliance is actually going to support and help in connecting the Global Alliance to those views, experiences at community level. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. So we're going to be listening. Rebecca.
I think that it's right, you need to cast a very broad net and make sure that we have broad engagement and collaboration from all the sectors that will be affected and that will need to be a part for a successful engagement. It's really important after that broad net is that we have really clear goals so that we know what we're trying to achieve and what climate smart agriculture is and isn't. And I also think it's going to be really important to set the standard for providing a network for learning and adapting over time as different places on the planet will have different solutions. Those solutions need to be shared and distributed so that they can be adopted elsewhere when and if appropriate. So a learning network will be very important in this.
Governance, listening, learning. Finally, Sean, what do you see as the key priorities in the first 6 months?
I don't disagree with anything that's been said, but if I was going to add to that one thing, I would say that, okay, we need to look at what does an alliance-type agenda look like at a country level. I know Tanzania, for example, have been working, and I think they're beyond listening, Martin. I would challenge you a bit, in the sense that that's critical, obviously. But also, I think there's been enough work going on now, and you see, countries, Costa Rica, Vietnam, I think Tanzania, where you've got a number of actions going on, but they've been going on independently. You've had landscaping work, you've had research work, you've had productivity-related work. And so I know that for Tanzania, they are looking to see if they can take the alliance concept down to the ground at a country level and develop that alignment and alliancing framework at the country level.
Thanks very much indeed, Sean. Just to sum up the panel, I think what we've seen here is the importance of including different perspectives on climate smart agriculture, and also the enormous importance of different country contexts, farming contexts, and so on. And next, that really, this shouldn't be a talk shop. We need action in climate smart agriculture. And so let's hope that if we meet here again in a year's time, we'll be reporting on everything that we've done. Please join me in giving the panelists a round of applause.
Thank you.